So let's talk about spontaneity. Because one of the aspects of becoming spontaneous is understanding how to practice it. And a big part of that is understanding the 3 different sections of every IKKA self-defense technique. First, let's take a look at some of the very simple basic drills that we've been working on. Can you come over here? Sure. So for example, the 4-position drill that we have, meaning that he could be throwing a right straight punch at me, and I'm going to simply, if I'm in a fighting stance already, I can simply do the second half of attacking mace to deal with that. That's the purpose of attacking mace. Mr. Parker addresses this in the Yellow Belt Journal, that attacking mace solves 2 problems. It deals with a left straight punch. Well, I'm mirror-sighted right now, all right? But if I was in a right fighting stance, it would deal with a left straight punch, which I can, deal with right now, right? The second half of attacking mace deals with a straight punch to my face, please, right? A right straight punch, right? Do that again. So right here, bam, right? And then you have the diagonal cross check. We're not too worried about that diagonal cross check right now as much as we are concerned with knowing which tactic we have to switch to. Then we have the late sword against the right straight or roundhouse, right? And then of course we have the snap kick with that one, right? And we have sword of destruction, which is the mirror image to that. 1 and 2, right? So, and of course, most people in Kenpo will recognize that the late sword can be substituted or can be replaced with 5 swords, and sword of destruction can be replaced with shielding hammer, right? That doesn't really make the drill any more complicated for most Kenpo people. So our basic 4-position drill for brown belts and black belts should then be against a straight right punch. We do straight right. He was faking me with a roundhouse. You see that? Straight right punch. We'll get attacking mace, the ending part, to that one more time. Right? And if you get really comfortable with it, then start doing the diagonal cross check. But I don't want to punish my partner over and over. I want to be able to do a lot of repetitions here. Right? Right roundhouse punch. We can go right to up here, 5 swords. Right? Left roundhouse punch, obviously we can go from here to shielding hammer, right? Left straight punch, we can go into the beginning of attacking mace, right? Not that difficult. Now, what I see when people do spontaneity is that most people are so addicted to the sequences of their techniques that they have a hard time stopping at that moment. So then you get people watering down this drill and not getting results quickly because the right roundhouse punch, they're so into doing 5 swords now that they forget, well, that's not what we're practicing though. What we're practicing is, are you ready for the situation where you don't know if he's going to punch with his right or his left, you don't know if he's going to punch straight or roundhouse. And by the way, once we get comfortable with that, well, he could do an uppercut. Either with the right, which is why we have to have raining claw to stop that second punch, or left uppercut, or we have glancing wing, again, to stop the second punch. So I'm going to talk about stopping the second move a little bit more right now, because this is extremely important to understand when you are developing spontaneity. Every technique has 3 components, or 3 sections. Response, check maintenance, and dynamic or creative. Excuse me. And the reason why it has those 3 different sections, because it's exactly what's always going to happen in every technique. Excuse my voice, I just got over a cold. Let me explain. If your opponent is much closer, there is no response interval. You cannot wait. Right? He came into my range. Whoever strikes first is going to get the strike in. We're too close to make a block practical, right? But that's not what the self-defense techniques and IKKAs are starting with. The freestyle techniques, yes, but not the self-defense techniques. Self-defense techniques against strikes, move back. They assume that your opponent stepped into your range with an active strike. So that means I can block it. In other words, the first thing that entered, in other words, stay there. I can't reach you yet. I can't check you yet. I can do a positional check, but I cannot check this punch because he's too far away, right? So that's the first problem that every IKKA self-defense technique solves. He's coming into your range, and while he's doing that, he's hitting. In other words, he is the offensive fighter. I'm forced to be defensive because I allowed him to get the first move on me. Just like in point fighting, or any fighting, if one guy attacks, well, you have to adjust to what he's attacking you with. You have to respond to that attack. So this is a complete stimulus response situation. I don't get to do my favorite block. I need to do the block that handles that strike, whatever strike it might be, right? So one of the first things that every Kenpo student, even already at maybe like purple belt level, should be working on is just the response portion of this, right? So you might throw that punch, right? You might throw the other punch, right? Right? But always stepping out first. Otherwise, we're already in the next phase. So right now, remember, I was talking about purple belts.
Yes, sir.
You wouldn't do that to a purple belt, right? So you would like, can you see how quickly this becomes overwhelming? If we don't separate these three intervals, and I'm going to explain them all, don't worry. So I can simply look at, all right, what is he hitting me with? And I can block that. Then he has to move back again, out of range. What is the person stepping into my range with? Okay, he's stepping with that. And it doesn't matter where you move to as long as you move out of the way somehow, right? So like right there, you saw me move up the circle a little bit. That's fine. But once we accomplish that, we are now in the check maintenance interval. Things have changed, and they have changed for one reason and one reason only: distance. Block this. Easy, right? Because you can read my motion. Block this. He doesn't know what I'm throwing at him. Block this. But he has enough room to comfortably react. That makes this the response interval. Response is possible. Stimulus response is possible and effective now. People often say, or sometimes say, oh, blocks don't work in a street fight. Because they don't understand that, no, block belongs in only one short situation. When the guy comes from out of range to within range and he's got a strike happening. That's when you are have the opportunity to block. If your opponent moves in and shrinks the distance without striking, we are done with the response interval. Don't even try to block anymore. Right? It's kind of too late, but you know it's not going to work, right? So I wouldn't try it either, right? And that a lot of beginning students are confused by that. Well, you know, I'm supposed to like step back and block, but the guy was like in my face, like, well, this time, right? This time. So the guy was puffing out his chest and stepped into my space. I don't think I could have blocked quickly enough. And that is absolutely correct. That is not the time to block, right? So when the distance has shrunk, once it has shrunk to the point that you are within, just getting a little bit of a fighting stance, that we can like touch each other's targets, if you're that close, even if you can just touch each other's upper arms, right? We're in like contact, within contact, just about contact penetration range, we can penetrate the targets. We can no longer wait. Make sense? We are now in the check maintenance distance or interval. They're considered intervals because they're moments in time. First he's out here, then he's here, then he's here. And hopefully if you succeeded, now he's somewhere like this. Right? That'll be the dynamic interval, all right? So I hope the explanation of the response interval makes sense. That was the first one, right? The portion of the technique that allows you to respond because he's coming from the distance, right? And you are able to block. Bam. But now the distance has shrunk, which of course means sometimes there won't be a response interval. Like I just said a moment ago. Well, what if he just walks up? And well, let's say it's not that serious yet, right? He's still trying to de-escalate, right? Which is not really done with a punch to the chest. So, excuse my sarcasm. Well, yeah, exactly, something like that, maybe, right? That's actually what he's doing right now. He's actually maintaining a response interval, which is something I teach all the time, right? Don't let somebody walk up like that. He can just put his hand up first, so that way he's not aggressive. So otherwise, if you walk in on me, the hand goes up first, because that way you're walking at me. I'm not touching you. My hand was there before. You got to it. Right? That's different. So don't do this. Walk in. Now he can say, hey, you hit me. Right? Or don't touch me. Right? No. He walks in at me. Oh, excuse me, that's too close. Thank you. I'm backing up a little bit, but I keep my hand extended. That is one of the best tools, by the way, in a street situation. Right? Anyhow, that's not really the subject of the discussion right. So, obviously, once the distance has shrunk, the way I protect myself has changed. How I now choose my next move, my selection process for spontaneity is now different because it's not fully stimulus response. I am still responding though to a stimulus, but it's actually a potential strike now rather than an active one. When you came from the distance, there was an active strike, I was assuming, right? And bam, I was able to block it. When you're coming closer, but not striking, just kind of like threatening or something like that. But you know, well, if you're that bad, I'm going to hit you. Right? Let's say you're trying to like sneak up on me without tipping me off that you want to hit me. But in either case, as Kenpo students, we should know, all right, the guy is so close, I cannot afford to wait for him to try to hit me, right? So that means you're in check maintenance. I have to somehow put a check out right here, so he is limited. I'm no longer able to respond to his move or moves. I need to prevent them now. So the check maintenance interval is a stage where we need to prevent, not respond. And what are we preventing? Well, potential movements. Every IKKA Kenpo technique that is against the strike teaches you exactly how to do that. That is why in shielding hammer, we're learning to hit this way, because this is checking that. Right? It would be the same thing as you walked in on me and we have, for some reason we're here, and I'm going, well, if he moves that hand, bam, I'm going to hit him in the face quicker than what he can reach me, because I'm closer and I'm probably more prepared, right? Right? So same thing with 5 swords, right? So if we happen to be here, right, for whatever reason, then I can, yes, don't do that quite yet. So the moment I see him even twitch, bam, I can beat him to that. And don't forget that this chop right here can become a block if I feel that this arm is very quick, right? That's why in 5 swords you do have to practice to sometimes go block, no, don't do that yet. Sometimes go block, chop, but also be ready to go, now go faster, block, block. And then just go into your either eye strike or palm or a combination of both of those, right? So in either case, both of those techniques clearly show us what we can do in order to prevent the second motion. But really what is crucial to understand is not the fact that it's your second motion that makes it different. It's the fact that you're closer that makes it different, right? If you, let's say you take shielding hammer, you could block twice. If you maintain the distance, so you do a left roundhouse punch, and I block and I back up. Now I can block again, I got plenty of room. I'm forcing you to move in, right? So I can maintain the response interval sometimes. It can be useful to back up a little bit. Let's say you do exactly that. So the left punch and then the right punch, right? So I can kind of read you and frustrate you, and chances are the attacker is getting a little bit more tunnel vision and running out of ideas, and he's open, right? So it's not a bad tactic. But that's not how the original techniques go. The original techniques go, all right, response interval, check maintenance interval right away. I'm hitting this way because I'm worried about that. I would not be preventing that if he threw the punch there. Don't hit me with the second one, man, because I'm going to be wide open. If I did this and go like, bam, right here. Or I figure, I'm wondering if dance or death works on the inside. Well, not too well, unless you have something right here that protects you, right? I want to have a move that protects me against that, right? So, attacking mace did that, straight left punch right now. From here, that check right here together with my punch, right? This check is designed to cross his other arm up, so it's difficult for you to hit me with that, right? By the same token, when he comes with a right straight punch right here, and I'm on this side, I'm going to use a diagonal cross check for the same reason, to prevent getting hit with the other hand, right? Typically, checking will be easier on the outside of the arms, right, compared to the inside of the arms. On the inside of the arms, more likely you're going to use strikes in order to prevent them from hitting. On the outside of the arm, much more likely use either pushes or pulls to control it. All right? That's what yellow belt is already teaching us, and orange belt is then reinforcing. Right? So what phase are we in right now? Once I'm here, check maintenance. Very good. Check maintenance. Listen, check maintenance. I'm maintaining a check, right? Now, this is still stimulus response to some degree. I can't take my favorite check maintenance option. I gotta do the one that fits. That means here I gotta go like that. Here I gotta go like this. Here I gotta go like that. Here I gotta go like this. 4 different solutions to maintain a check. A little bit more complex than the blocks were. The blocks, up until this point, we haven't done any uppercuts or overheads. Block was just either inward or outward. I can figure that one out as an orange belt. Throw a punch. Okay, that way. Throw another punch. Okay, that way, right? That's easier, right? Now, the next part, going to be tough for an orange belt to do right off the bat, right? So that's a little bit more difficult. But the self-defense techniques teach us exactly how to respond on the second move. While on the first move, we responded to an actual strike. On the second move, we're responding to a potential strike. That means I'm going from responding to a left roundhouse, from responding to, before you do that, to preventing. Again, just like in 5 swords, this could bypass the face if he's very fast and go right to become a block, right? And then I'll do my elbow right after that, right? All right, so that's the first 2 intervals. Response interval, check maintenance interval. But am I going to continue to be at a stimulus response point? And so far, I have to respond to my opponent, right? Right? Well, can't I turn this around? Can I turn the tables and get it to now you have to start responding to me? And that's what every technique does, right? We're not going to, unless you stop. So imagine he does the left roundhouse punch, you go here and then go bam right to this, or maybe even blocking that arm, right? And then what? Stop? Right? Then you're going to still be, you have to do check maintenance again. This will be very dangerous, right? Kenpo techniques don't teach us to do that. They teach us, well, now you can turn the table, and he has to respond boom, to me, bam, and I'm going to occupy him. He's now in the situation that I was in just a moment ago. You're now in the response interval. I turn the tables. That's what every IKKA technique does. As simple of a technique as sword of destruction. Left roundhouse punch, right? 1, I was responding. 2, good luck throwing that second strike, right? So that check your depth. That's why the yellow technique is simpler. Right? People think it is not a practical technique. It is absolutely practical, as long as you can kick, right? And it's simpler. That's why this is on yellow belt. Because if I'm on the inside of that arm, this checks his depth, protects me against that second punch, and the same thing around mirror side. If you throw that punch first, just the same thing. As a beginner, I can remember all that, more or less, right? And then on orange belt, it gets a little bit more complex, where we say if it's this punch, I gotta go this way. If it's that punch, I gotta go this way. But for the exact same reason, right? Once you do that, your options are going to open up dramatically. Because I didn't have a whole lot of options yet. When you threw that punch, I had the option maybe which arm I'm going to block with, but I had to block that, or I had to duck it, or I had to move out of the way. That was about my options, right? Or I could, and there's another option, of course, somebody goes, if they see this video, they're going to say, hey, isn't there another option? Throw the punch. I can intercept you, right? But that's a totally different subject, right? But the sidekick does that. The sidekick basically still adheres to this, but it's simply an interception now. That's another way we can stop our opponent. But that is not what the techniques in the IKKA system at first teach us. They teach us do the punch, respond, and then check before he gets an opportunity. And by the way, this check, and this is also a check, right? And then now it's different. Now I go, well, I've got options. I can go through with my swords, right? Or I could go do all kinds of stuff. What if it's not as serious of a situation? What if the guy is a drunk who's trying to grab your shoulder? And I go here. Now, should I really break bones, right? So you might go, all right, I might want to do that again, grab my shoulder and go here, and just kind of slap him a little bit, right? Maybe a little bit of a groin strike, and then I won't do this to Mr. Salinas. He's a little bit in pain. But this would be a nice situation to do a takedown, knock you down on the ground or something, right? Don't worry. Everybody knows takedowns. I don't have to demonstrate them right now, right? But clearly I have options. If I was on the outside, one nice option would be going to an armbar, for example. That would be a more subdued situation, right? But I have options. Which is also the reason why a lot of times when you are in a technique line, you will hesitate right there. If you're a brown belt or a black belt in Kenpo, I imagine you've had this experience. If it's a freestyle, a reaction drill, the guy just throws an attack, you're going 1, you're going 2, and maybe you're doing a little bit more of attacking mace or something, and then you're going, what should I do next? And the reason why you're having difficulty right there is because your mind just switched from stimulus response to creative or dynamic. In other words, your move told me what to do, those strike, the best thing, the fastest way for me to stop the strike. Your position, because we're now in check maintenance, your position again tells me what to do. All right, pull this punch right here, right? So in this position, that prevents his next movement. But once that occurs, none of what you do forces me into anything. I have many options. So naturally, at that moment, after throw the punch again, naturally, right here is where people go, what should I do? Right? Because it's up to you now. it is no longer stimulus response. That's what has all changed here. So that is the third interval in every IKKA technique, and it is the dynamic interval. Okay, and that the first thing to make that part easy, by the way, is I would think that there's three main options. You can hit him a bunch of times. You can manipulate him like an arm bar, wrist lock, something like that. And you can do a takedown. Those are your three main groups, right? Because depending on what situation it is, and one of those might be more appropriate. If you're a police officer, a takedown might be most appropriate, right? Or if it's somebody who's not really that dangerous. What if it's a kid? Some smart-aleck kid trying to hurt you or so, and you don't want to go to jail for that. Right? So then, all right, so maybe you just push his arm down or something, or maybe just trip his leg. What if it's a female that's intoxicated? All right. So obviously there are a variety of different situations. Now, what if it's a top-notch grappler that's about to get you twisted up into a pretzel and is going to injure your joints or your elbow or something? Totally different situation, totally different level of danger. Right. And so you have that option then in the dynamic interval. So a very simple way you can keep all these three parts of any technique apart is first, respond, second, prevent, third, put on aggressive pressure. In other words, occupy him. Right? Every technique does that. Left roundhouse punch. I'm responding, I'm preventing, and now I'm going to occupy him with a bunch of stuff, so that way he cannot hit me back. He is now responding to me. Five Swords does it, right? I'm responding, I'm preventing, and now I'm occupying him with a bunch of stuff, right? In order to, again, turn the tables and get him occupied. Now I realize that was a long explanation, but it requires a long explanation. All right? I've written this back in 1995, shortly after Mr. Parker, well, I was writing it a few years after Mr. Parker passed away, because I did not want this knowledge to get lost. Right? So please understand, every Ed Parker self-defense technique adheres to this. And this is the key to developing spontaneity. Don't try to do all three at the same time. So one day, we might just drill the response. That goes pretty quick for black belts. They're pretty good with that. You probably have done that so many times as a brown belt too. All right, throw a kick at me, throw a punch at me, I think I can block it. But the check maintenance part is more difficult. That's where you often have to go, okay, well, this looks like this in this technique, how do I stop him there? Let's say he does a roundhouse kick to me, right? I'm going, whoa, right? Oh, I have that one. That's a good way to deal with that. Or again, throw a roundhouse kick to me, right? I'm going, oh, man, maybe I can. Now what if he was a double kicker? Like a Taekwondo guy. I know that's not exactly what your forte, but he keeps his leg up for a second kick. Well, that means, right? What's that one called? Swinging pendulum, right? Right? So that's really against a double kicker. Swinging pendulum, that's what I would use that one against, right? Or again, throw the same roundhouse kick. Oh, you do from doom, right? Fits right there too, right? So we have several techniques that give us ideas on what you could do to maintain the check on the guy. Right, the block is almost identical. Block didn't really change, right? Swinging pendulum, I went here, and the only reason why I have two arms is because I can't really predict the height of your kick. Yes. It is so easy to go from a low roundhouse kick to a high roundhouse kick. I have to have both arms. That's the only reason for doing a universal block on the roundhouse kick. So the block in swinging pendulum is basically the same as the block in the deceptive panther, right? Right there, right? And very similar to detour from doom. Now, how come detour from doom you can get away with blocking just with one arm? How come you're not getting hit in the face there? There's another reason. I'm going to take something more flexible to help me answer that. Come over here. Can you do a roundhouse kick to my hand? Oh, perfect. All right, so do the roundhouse kick high like that. I do swinging pendulum. I need this rear arm and this front arm to block that way. Again, if I do deceptive panther, same thing. Now let's see how good he is hitting me in the head in Detour from Doom. Ready, go. Notice the difference? I'm closer. You can kick me with your foot to the head, go. But now try to get me with your knee to the head, go. Kind of hard, right? And I'm pretty low. So in Detour from Doom, we shrunk the distance. That's why we're able to go right to the punch. So as he does a roundhouse kick, we're changing it there. And we're taking that target away simply because his knee does not reach that high. Thank you very much. Alright, does this all make sense? Yes, sir. So from now on, I hope that you will always view every self-defense technique that is against a strike in terms of, like the block makes sense, that's easy. Right, if you're a Kenpo brown belt or a Kenpo black belt, if you're confused about that, you have other problems. Right? So, alright, the block makes sense, but why am I doing the second move? How is the second move of this particular technique, whatever technique it might be, how is the second move of this particular technique preventing his follow-up? That's what you need to look at. And so when I do introduce, which I am doing, a lot of spontaneity drills, we have to separate those three intervals. Otherwise, you're going to be completely overwhelmed. So most of the time for us, as we're more advanced, it means we'll keep the we'll keep the response interval and the check maintenance interval stuck together. Unless you're a beginner, those now belong together. But the dynamic interval does not. You are not a slave to the next move in a sequence of any technique because the tables have turned once you have gained control over your opponent. Does this all make sense? All right, so there's really your first and most important lessons in attaining spontaneity in Kenpo, understanding that, okay, first I'm responding, then I'm preventing, and then I am occupying him. I couldn't occupy him on the first move. Not unless I try to block his punch with my face. A friend of mine used to say that very much. If your first block fails, don't worry. The second block with your face gets him every time. But anyhow, I hope that makes sense, right? So first, respond to what he's doing. And that's only, of course, if you let him get the first move in. In a street situation, you can remove the response interval. Right? So again, if you're right here, I can already, as he gets close, kind of go, oh, I'm sorry, sir, that's a little close to me, right? I'm already like doing a positional check. The response is already, we've already passed that because of how close he is. I'm already in check maintenance. So recognize that the difference, back up, the difference between response interval and check maintenance is not the fact that he threw a strike at first. It is that he was in the distance, I couldn't check you. Now he gets closer, and now I can check you, right? And so once you get the upper hand and your moves are working, of course, then you are turning the tables, and you should not give him an opportunity to then regain his composure or to somehow retreat and get back to being able to do all this again a second time. So I made that example the other day in terms of when the Allied forces invaded Normandy, came off the boats, and so many of them sacrificed themselves on the beaches over there. What they did not do when they invaded Germany is at nighttime go back into their boats. That would have been crazy, right? And that actually starts going into the category of maintaining established entry. All right? But these two subjects are connected. All right? So, now it took a lot of time. We're actually supposed to be working on forms right now, so I'm going to give you the last couple of minutes of class to just work your forms. Thank you very much.